Steve Kemp with the People, Not Titles podcast, and I am so glad today to have my good friend, colleague, and business associate, Harry Bartosiak here from Bartosiak Law. Harry, thanks for being a part of the program.
Steve, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Harry, we've been doing business for a long time, and as you know, the podcast is really centered around people's career journey and their steps to how they became the professional that they are. And so I admire you. You do great work. Your clients really rave about you. And so we just want to dig down and talk a little bit about what makes Harry tick. And so my first question is, were you born a lawyer?
No, I was not. I can't sit here and say that that I have a history of attorneys in the family, or that I was born to be a lawyer, or that it's ingrained in me. Matter of fact, I have to admit that one of the things that got me interested in becoming an attorney was watching LA Law on TV in the late 1980s. Seems frivolous, but at the time, nowadays it seems like, I know my kids going into college, there's a lot of pressure to figure out what you want to do in life right after that.
Yep.
Not so much when I was in my formative years. So, watching.
So LA Law, how old were you when you were watching LA Law and caught the vision?
This is probably early college or post high school, whenever it was on. But I thought, hey, that seems like an exciting career. You get to sit in a nice conference room with other professionals, maybe drive a nice car. Those are interesting cases.
Yeah.
Sounds frivolous, but anyway, when I was exploring in college what it is I would like to do, then I went to work at the law library at the University of Iowa.
Okay.
And I got interested in the substance of the law. So little by little, I gravitated towards the law. But absolutely, except for watching TV and seeing lawyers on TV, I didn't have any early childhood or teenage years inclination to do it. It just came up.
Okay. And did you go to law school at University of Iowa?
No, I went to law school at Loyola University in Chicago.
My oldest daughter is a graduate of Loyola.
Right. Yeah.
Fellow Rambler.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a great experience there. They have excellent teachers. You're in the heart of the city where there's jobs and opportunity. But law school is as good an experience as it is, and as much as they teach you to think like a lawyer, you get very little practical training. A lot of us did. You can take clinics and things like that, but it didn't get a ton of practical training in how to practice law, how to do real estate closings, or how to deal with people, how to interact with clients. So it's been
how to promote and build your business.
How to build your business.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't recall any of that. I'm not criticizing law. I'm just saying that's not what they do.
Right.
Yeah. On the other hand, as soon as I graduated, I think we attended a bar. All of us had to take the bar exam, obviously.
Well, I thought you went to the bar.
Well, that too. I mean, you do what you got to do to get through. But in any event, at the end of it all, one of my mentors, one of the first places I worked, talked to us baby lawyers and said, "Congratulations, you now know more about the law than you ever will in your entire career."
Wow.
And what he meant, he was right, but what he meant was you know more collectively about substantive areas of the law. Anything from constitutional law to criminal law. Then you get a job and you focus and you narrow down. And eventually I ended up, essentially being a real estate attorney, finding what I really
And how soon after, so you graduate, you have your law degree, what was next for you? Will you start hustling for a job or?
Well, the way it works a lot in law school is you'll get a job as a law clerk. Some students get a job with big firms and they're, on track to be hired by that firm. Some work for smaller firms, some for governmental agencies. I work for the Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission, which is the entity that disciplines attorneys and registers them, as the name implies.
Is that the ARDC?
ARDC,
okay.
Right. Which was a fascinating job. I learned a lot.
Was that in Springfield?
No, it is an arm of the Supreme Court out of Springfield, but they have a Chicago-based office.
Okay.
Yeah, so I work downtown, and they actually do basically the equivalent of trials there. For the most serious cases of ethical misconduct. They have a hearing board made up of different attorneys. Attorneys are represented by lawyers who specialize, a lot of them, in representing lawyers in trouble. And so you see a lot of what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all over the board, from somebody who made an honest mistake and then did something to make it worse, or flat out stealing
Fraud,
money.
yeah.
So it's not, for me, it wasn't the type of job I wanted to make a career of, but it was great learning experience. I was a law clerk for these hearing board members, learning, again, how to think logically, how to apply laws and regulations to real life situations, and how to writing in the law. And it applies just as much to real estate transactions as it does to anything else, is a critical communication skill.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't put forward a credible presentation and argument, it's not just the argument, the way you say it too.
Yeah.
There's stylistic considerations involved,
Mm-hmm.
and put your best foot forward. So I learned a ton, but as I said, it's not the kind of place I wanted to spend the career, although there's great people there that did make careers out of it. But I wanted to get into the real practicing world. So I moved.
And how long was that? What was that?
It was
stint?
about a 2-year
Okay.
stint.
Okay.
Just perfect.
Yeah.
Then I moved on to get a job with a litigation firm, first out in Wheaton and then out in the city. And then I found, at this point, I had nothing to do with real estate law.
And are you litigating now?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Because what happened was, during my stint as a litigator, I realized, oh my God, this is not what I want to do. It doesn't fit my personality.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing but respect for my colleagues that do litigation, and it's important. But my goal, I found it, I didn't like, I like a situation where we're working for a client towards a common goal, something positive happening at the end.
Mm-hmm.
In litigation, I did medical malpractice, other kinds of lawsuits. Nobody wants to be there. The job is difficult. You've got to do what you got to do, and you got somebody watching over your shoulder on the other side every minute.
Mm-hmm.
And I had...
It's very adversarial, isn't it?
Yeah, super adversarial. I found, I'm just a young lawyer at this point. People are yelling at each other in depositions. I thought, this needs to be done, but this is not my...
Sounds like my dinner table when I was young with my brothers.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. It would make for great TV shows.
Yeah.
Right? I thought, I'm not going to be a TV show lawyer. Like all that LA law stuff, that's not going to be for me.
Right.
Except maybe the guy they showed on there was doing a real estate deal. So anyway, I kind of ran for the hills.
So that's a good point, Harry, is that you were self-aware enough that, hey, it's not just I'm going to be any kind of lawyer. That you've decided that I need to be happy and fulfilled in what I'm doing, and here's what really resonates with me.
That's right. I felt that my personality leaned towards resolving conflict, which I know litigators, they work towards that too. Mm-hmm. But if I can get to a situation I felt where we're doing a business transaction, whether it's buying a home, buying a piece of real estate property, helping somebody start a business, sell a business, contracts to make positive things happen, help people
for
make
both,
money.
Right? Because when you sell a business, there's someone on the other end buying it saying, I like this and I like your price.
That's right. And you need still, and I've done this for a long time now, you need to be a tough advocate for your client. There's no doubt that there is an adversarial component that can come up, but you're doing it in a different context. You're finding ways to get agreement from the other side to accomplish your client's goals, and they have to come out a winner too. Or I guess leverage is everything. Sometimes somebody could say, well, seller has no leverage, you can just railroad through. You don't like to operate with that mindset. You try to find, let's make this happen in a way that our client agrees is positive. The other side is going to come out a winner too. We need to be tough, detail oriented. Make sure that all the details are paid attention to, and the client gets what they pay for, or gets the full purchase price they're entitled to on the sales side. But you're doing it in a positive context. We're making a good thing happen.
Yes.
And most importantly, what I found, and that what really the job is for me, and doing the quality work of the details is always job number one. But I love the fact that what we can do is help somebody with something they don't do every day.
Yeah.
They might be very sophisticated, a business person, they might have no level of business experience, but this is an important task: to buy real estate, to sell real estate, to do leases, to invest, to get advice, something that they need help with.
Yeah, and you have a level of expertise that they don't have that you're contributing to the transaction.
Correct. And you can give them the comfort level they need to know they're in good hands, and tell them what they need to worry about, what they don't need to worry about, what's normal, what's not normal. That's when I can tell, when I'm in the middle of the transactions and dealing with all kinds of different people, when I can feel that they're easing down a little bit, and from some fears or consternation they had about something they shouldn't really be worried about, I know I'm adding my best value then.
That's fantastic. So okay, you're in this litigation, and then in this litigation area, then what was the turning point for you to say, okay, I need to get out of this. I understand now. Where do you go from there?
Right. So, good question. And this is a long time ago now, so the memory is not quite what it used to be. But basically, what happened is I was miserable at the job.
Okay.
And the people I worked with were great. I learned a lot from them. Still lessons that I learned today. But it was just the nature of the position. So I sought out opportunities where I could ease into a transactional practice, because you do a lot of soul searching and I still wasn't that far out of law school, so talked to the advisors there, and got an opportunity to work with a large firm that had mostly a litigation practice, but had a decent sized transactional practice. This is about 150 lawyers, great firm in the city, and so I got myself hired there, and eventually became partner and worked with their transactional team, and it was a great opportunity because there were many quality and different types of transactions available, whether it's real estate or the business sales that I mentioned, contracts of all different types. And we had 100 some other attorneys that didn't do transactions, and whenever, even estate planning, when that would come up, you had a built-in referral source network. So I learned the ropes from some great attorneys there who taught me valuable lessons, taught me the fundamentals, and I was able to spend the first few years of transactional practice working in an environment with lots of mentors, lots of support when I really needed it most.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So you made up your mind, Harry. There's a lot of people that are miserable in their work, and you made up your mind that you weren't going to be miserable in your work. I think it's a really key distinction that you spend a lot of time at work, and it's important just from a life balance standpoint to say, okay, I want to be happy in my work. I want to be fulfilled.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I have kids that are a certain age where they're in college or about to be in college right now, and I talked with their mother, and I said, my rule is simply, you do what you love, what you think you love. Let that be your guiding force. Now, nobody wants to be broke. You need to make money.
No doubt.
But I learned that.
And there are elements to what you're doing that are unpleasant. It's like every day isn't unicorns and rainbows.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, you can look at your day and not dread it, right? And then feel like energy going into it.
I think that, especially in our, this is like cliche, our changing world. Things seem to be going a little crazy out there. We don't know what the future holds for kids of that age, and I think that the best I can do is tell them, find something that you're truly invested in terms of, does it light your pilot light? Does it get you motivated? If you want to do it every day, you're going to have all those troubles and trials and tribulations and have to dig in, but if you don't like underneath what you're doing as a starting point, there's going to be trouble. And then be willing to adjust, like I did. I don't know, I didn't do anything dramatic, but I'm not patting myself on the back, but let's just say I am a big supporter of making a change if you just feel in your bones that you're not working with the grain of your personality.
I like that. And you mentioned also mentors, and I was going to ask you about who were the mentors, but what are some of the things the mentors did for you that were critical?
So the mentors, first of all, they'll show you the fundamentals. Here's the contract form. Here's what it means. Set up. They would set up. Basically practice sessions for me to, where you can't make a mistake that's going to harm anybody. I mean, you got to learn on the job, because, as I said, law school teaches you such a broad array of things that if you don't have somebody, you can learn from the school of hard knocks, but you don't want to take a risk with the clients. But more important than that, being available, having the door open down the hall to talk to. giving you lessons about the fact, you learn early on that it's not just doing the job, that it's the delivery of the services that's important too. You have to recognize that type of client, as I talked about earlier, can be different. It could be a person who has no idea how to do a contract for employment. They have no idea how to what goes into the house sale process, or it could be a sophisticated investor and you need to do a ground lease for a property that they're going to develop and lease to Burger King or something like that. You got to deal with those people differently. They have different expectations.
Yeah.
Underneath, you have to be yourself, but you have to be cognizant of the fact that they expect you to give them the comfort level that you know what you're doing and you're in good hands.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a junior lawyer, that's not so easy. Matter of fact, it can be very, very difficult. You have no context, nothing under your feet.
Yeah.
Until it takes sometimes years until you're.
And that's where you have to tap into that senior leadership, and that senior leadership has to be willing and patient enough to teach a young buck like you at the time and say, hey, listen, I'm gonna set aside what I have to do and I'm gonna build into Harry. That's special when you find people like that through the course of your journey. It's special when you look back and you go, wow, man, I don't know if I'd have made it without this person building into me, and it makes you want to maybe do it for somebody else then.
That's exactly right. No, I would have never been able to have my own practice or be the attorney I have or deliver the kind of service I had if I wasn't allowed, if I didn't have this network of people, and they come from all over, not just the people I work for, people from title companies that have helped me, people from real estate brokers.
Yes.
I always think of it as I have my own practice right now. I'm the only attorney in the practice and I enjoy it, but I don't really have my own practice. I have all these people that I've met over the years and lawyers that I work with actively on other matters. We have referrals for litigation. It's kind of like a floating law firm of contacts that you can go to where we help each other, and it started off in a hardcore way where I needed the help the most, and I look for opportunities now to help others. And that's one of the reasons I love real estate, is because you get a chance to work with so many different real estate brokers who are a lot of times very entrepreneurial, sometimes building up their business from the beginning, even ones who are seasoned professionals. We've got to all constantly be out there working to increase or maintain business. It's not on automatic pilot usually in the transactional world. So there's a lot of opportunities to help each other.
Awesome.
And whether it's through traditional marketing or just something to bounce off somebody, maybe making a referral for something that you have an overload matter. I have some real estate broker friends that have changed in the brokerage that they work for, and there's uncertainty. Want to compare notes? What are you hearing? And what's the lowdown, the scoop in the legal market? So even in my sole practice, where it would be easy, to just work on my own, I never work on my own. That's not my.
You're very collaborative. Harry, at what point in your career, I'm a big believer that no matter whether someone else is writing you out a paycheck or whether you're writing out your own paycheck, that you're really working for yourself the whole time. And was there a point in time where you shifted from I'm an employee to I am, Harry Bartosiak Incorporated?
Yes, for sure. And I think I can trace it back to around about the 2008 real estate market collapse.
I was there.
Yeah, it was a rough go, obviously, and that's what gave me the impetus to get out there and start my own practice. This larger firm that I had worked for, great place, at one point felt that I was kind of growing out of the systems and capabilities they had to handle larger real estate transactions. Okay. Not that they didn't have quality people there, but the setup was more for litigation. So I went to work for a real estate boutique firm, and then after that, the market collapsed. It wasn't as much business that I had on my own. It wasn't a natural flow of work. I'm back to working for the larger firm. Things weren't the way they used to be before. I did have some of my own clients, but not, I didn't have my own practice built up at that point. Then the larger firm, this was not a great time for anybody. So things were, kind of a rocky road. Nobody's getting fired or anything like that, but you start to become cognizant of the fact that there's no job security unless you have your own clients. They're not all going to walk away at once, even in a transactional practice where work isn't guaranteed. That's the best form of job security. And then I'm getting old enough by that point where I realize, I'm entrepreneurial. I don't want to just have my wagon tied to somebody else 100%. If I don't know what I'm doing by now, on the substance, I never will. And on running a business, I know a little bit. Let's find out if we can do it.
So that's still a risk. People just think, because you're a lawyer, you're an entrepreneur. But that's not necessarily the truth, right?
No.
That you have to shift to that, that.
You have to shift to that mindset. And it was a big shift. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget. And I had one of my mentors there tell me, you're ready for your own practice. You can do it. And that meant a lot.
Powerful, yeah.
But it didn't make me feel it didn't give me a complete comfort level when I was laying in bed after the first few weeks realizing, I don't have a paycheck.
Right, right.
So there was a shock to the system. It took me about a year.
Yes.
Now they say, if you read the books and start your own law firm, your own practice, here's the way you do it. You have 6 months or a year's salary saved up. You have all that. I already at this point have 3 kids. It's not working out all perfect that way. So on the other hand, I got out there and hustled. It was a great impetus. You keep overhead low. You learn some good lessons. And I made it,
Yes.
We made it. We didn't have to live in a cardboard box. And I started to build business back up that way. So that was a life-changing experience. I realized I might not be the world's smartest entrepreneur, but I can do it.
Well, Harry, I think that's a great distinction if an agent is watching this or a business owner, they're looking at someone that has legal expertise, but they're also looking at someone that can sympathize, empathize, and identify with the struggles of entrepreneurship, the considerations, the concerns, the having to make payroll, it rests on your shoulder, the pressures, and the energy and mindfulness that it takes to plan your year, all the things that go into entrepreneurship. So bravo to you that there's more to what's sitting before me than just an attorney, but it's an attorney entrepreneur, and that's special, I think.
No, well, I appreciate that, and I consider myself, wear multiple hats, but it's basically the legal work and then being a business owner.
Yes.
And again, that's why working with the real estate brokers, they almost all are reliant on their own book of business. I mean, there's teams of brokers out there, and there's people who are part-time and all that. But still, I feel like I have a synergy or connection with the fact that you're just like me. We're building our business. We're giving quality service to clients.
Yeah, and I know how important this deal is, that at the end of the deal is a commission for you for a job well done, and I want to get to the closing table.
That's exactly right.
This is important. Every phone call is, it has that kind of energy to it.
We're all
a business owner, and we're all in it together.
We're all in it together. And then underneath it all is the most important, the heartbeat of it all is getting the job done for the client.
For the client, yeah absolutely.
But it's a big mix. That's why it's always, with me, in my opinion, is a team approach.
Yeah.
When we get a deal in, the contract is usually entered into, and now, somebody's handing over the wheel to the airplane, and you've got to land the plane.
Yes.
But everybody's got to stay still involved. I don't do anything without, sending out attorney review letters or making contract suggestions without consulting first with the broker, not just the client, but the broker. Sometimes in business transactions, there's matters that cross over into important accounting considerations, tax considerations. Well, we're not doing that. I'm not making a recommendation until we have consultation and get on the same page with the accountant. So you have to assess what's the job, for what, what's the recommendation, and let's get everybody on the same page on our end. And like going to residential real estate, a lot of it is mechanical in terms of how the contract's set up, which is very helpful. But the people are all different. The dynamics of the transaction are different. The broker's needs are different. Some don't want to, talk that much. Just you handle it and let me know if there's a problem. Others, you want to be involved every step of the way, manage their client experience. So that's what I consider one of my strengths. I try to determine what's the dynamic here, what are the desires of the broker, what's the desire of the client, let's make everybody feel comfortable again, that they're in good hands, and let's land that plane and get everybody their money.
Well, and Harry, that's part of the Bartosiak brand, right? I mean, you Google real estate attorney, a bunch of names show up, but then you have to distinguish yourself, and I think that you've done a great job of doing that, which is, it's not just, transactional click, 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 click. It is that almost every transaction is kind of it has its own personality for you, and you're trying to read the personality. Is that part of the brand, the Bartosiak brand?
It is. I guess you would say, for me, it's probably the biggest differentiator. I don't know if it's a differentiator. There's so many good attorneys out there.
Of course there are, yeah.
And I think I mentioned to you at the beginning, there's work out there for everybody.
Yep.
As long as there's work. Right now, it's a slower time.
Yep.
It's a great time to be meeting people and checking in and helping others if possible. But in general, if I have a differentiator, I think it's the fact that I do about 50-50 commercial real estate and residential.
Yep.
So again, with you dealing with all kinds of different people who have different needs and challenges. On the commercial front, it can be anywhere from, a transaction coming in recently can be tens of millions of dollars. Very sophisticated people, a big corporation on one side. My client is very knowledgeable, so almost telling you, here's what I want you to do.
Sure.
But you better know what you're doing. You better get the details right, because even that client, they want to know they're in good hands. Especially when the stakes are high, dollar figure wise. But sometimes the little building or the 2-flat, it's going to be an investor for the first time buyer who's going to then rent out one of the flats, or it's a pure investment property. They don't know the ins and outs, but the transaction is going to be pretty much the same setup as the big multi-million dollar deal in terms of title, survey. You have to know what you're doing. But that client has a different set of needs and goals and desires. And you might be a very smart person, but they haven't done it before. So you have to assess from the beginning, here's how we're going to handle that, and make sure that the client is on board every step of the way. You're going to talk to them and give them information and deliver the service in a different way than you would with the seasoned investor. And then on the home sale front, same thing. Some people have never, but it doesn't matter whether it's $25 million or whether it's a $125,000 condo. If that's your home and that's the first time you've ever bought, or it's a second or third time, that's the most important and probably most stressful thing going on in your life.
Yeah, and you're ready to step in.
Yeah. So unfortunately, after all these years, I've got the breadth of experience to know what do we need to get worried about, which is usually not too much. You can solve most problems, and what do we need not to worry about? What are the proper steps? When do we do this? When do we wait? So you can give them the comfort level they need to relax. You're in good hands. Still, something bad could happen, but I think then they're going to trust you by that point, knowing that you've given them the knowledge that they need, and even if it's a client says, I don't want to know, just let me know if there's a problem, that helps them too. So that's the trick for me. That is where we've got the knowledge, we know how to do the work. How about the people? Let's connect with them and give them the service in a way that gives them it's going to put a smile on their face. And then, of course, you try to be reasonable with the fees. They want them to be happy on that too. But usually that all works out, and you show your value, and they're happy with the fee because they're happy with the service.
So, Harry, if I'm a residential agent and because residential agents bump into a commercial deal, right? Yeah. You're a person that could add to their level of expertise and complement and kind of fill the gap of what they don't know. I've noticed that. So maybe speak to that.
Well, I think I have a feeling, I'm not sure, it's not scientific, but I think that there are residential agents out there who miss commercial opportunities.
Yes.
Sometimes I think some agents feel that there's some fundamental difference in the way those transactions are held. Well, they could never get involved in those without some kind of specialized training. And I don't think that's the case. Most of them agents who work for good brokerages, for example, you work with brokerage firms who have commercial agents as a component of the trend. If you can just identify the opportunity and get it into the right hands, you can, there's some very lucrative matters out there that you can take advantage of. For example, if you've got a residential real estate client you find is a business owner, and that, you know, keep in touch, and then you know when, if they're looking to buy a, you know, whether
Building,
it's an industrial
yeah,
building or office space or leasing office space, you've got the capability to work with that client. If you can talk to an attorney who does those kind of transactions, you find out very quickly that most of the components are the same. If it's a buy or a sell, there's a contract, there's a survey, there's title considerations.
There's lending involved, commercial, but you have a commercial lender
Right.
that we.
So
know.
underneath the hood of all those categories, there's differences.
Yeah.
But if you get it in the right hands at the beginning, we know the differences. Talk to, if you work for a brokerage firm that has some commercial agents, I know that, you know, there's a whole system set up for sharing fees and files.
Yeah.
So you would have to know your setup and what you're comfortable with. But that, and then title companies can be of a great resource. Land Trust Title is an amazing resource. You get in the hands of the title company and an attorney who's got some experience with commercial transactions, they're going to be able to quickly get you on the right track, where you don't have to just ignore the opportunity or punt it out the door. I mean, you can make a lot of money in commercial transactions.
Absolutely, and keep and not lose a client, right? Because all of a sudden you refer it out to someone. Next thing you know, it's like he's selling his home and you're not a part of it. Oh, because that commercial agent had a buddy who's in residential and blah blah blah, and now you've lost the client. So it's a way for you to expand your service just slightly, not get out of your lane, so to speak, but to keep the business with you.
That's right. Take advantage of the opportunity, even if you have to team up with somebody in the office. Then you know, I get a lot of referrals from current clients that I did business for, clients I never even knew. You know, maybe I got the referral from a broker, then I did a transaction for one client, well, then they recommend me to somebody else. It can work that way with commercial opportunities for residential
100%.
agents too. There's one or two here or there. You can do what you want, but if it were me, I would say, don't ignore those opportunities. Try one or two. Get with qualified professionals who can help you to see it's not, there is no unworkable magic or mystique to it. Again, we get under the hood, it's kind of the same, but every transaction is different. You get some proper guidance. You're smart enough, you know what you're doing. You can work one or two of those transactions and learn the ropes easily. And then get maybe more specialized training if you want to branch off and focus more in that area. But there's no reason not to look for and seize upon a commercial opportunity.
Awesome. So Harry, in terms of, do you have residential attorneys that leverage your commercial expertise?
Oh, sure. It happens all the time.
So that's another aspect of it, is that if you're a residential attorney, you're sitting there and saying, I know what Harry says, don't miss opportunity, but I'm residential, I know what I do. You're also a person that can step in and partner with them.
Yes, for sure. And I'm always, you know, I get referrals from other residential attorneys. I don't steal anybody's clients.
Of course
it don't work that way.
Yeah.
However, we try to complement each other. You know, I have a couple of attorneys who, if turns out they have whether it's a commercial opportunity or not, or somebody that needs to create an LLC, limited liability company,
sell a business.
Yeah. Sometimes sell a business, draft co-ownership agreement, change a shareholders agreement to allow for certain things to happen, maybe as part of a residential scenario. That is in my bailiwick. I basically do three primary things: residential and commercial real estate, real estate law, business law of all types that I mentioned, and estate planning, which can include shareholders agreements, include, you know, wills and trusts, things of that nature. So some colleagues out there are just focused on residential, so happy to help if the need comes. But
and that's great, that expertise. I can feel it, Harry, that those all really tie in together in many ways. And so it's great to have someone sitting at the table that you're not just thinking about the transaction, and then you got all these other pieces that are important. That so if you're doing estate and wills and thinking about those, it also is a part of that transaction. And now all of a sudden that expertise just really comes together.
Sure, it helps for sure. I met with a client the other day who wanted me to look to update their estate plan, for example, and I talk about, well, what types of assets do you have? What is part of your quote-unquote estate? And this particular client had 3 residential investment properties that he rents out, collects rent, in his name, the name of him and his wife. I said, first thing we're going to do here is put these in LLCs. You don't want to have your personal assets at risk. That doesn't make any sense. Now one of them was in a land trust, I believe.
Okay.
Familiar with land trust?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But that doesn't give you liability protection underlying. So anyway, that kind of base of experience allows
Ties
me
in.
to add, instant value because I don't have to go research it. But that's try to protect people, set up systems for if they're a real estate investor, or even if it's just owning your own home, you're usually not going to set up an LLC. But people have all kinds of different experience. Maybe they're going to actually run a business out of there. Maybe they're going to have clients come into that, as I said, the 2-flat scenario, they'll rent out part of the home. So you got to be thinking about, it's not one size fits all. What's the specific scenario here? What's the need of the client? And then is there any kind of business law component consideration or asset protection consideration that we should think about now? Because once it's over with, it gets put up on the shelf, and this kind of thing, can slip by the cracks for years. So that's part of it. That's
Great.
where the business law part helps me give people, better service.
Fantastic. Okay, Harry, I want to shift to Harry the man. Are there any routines that you have during your day from a professional standpoint or from a personal standpoint that you think are like, this is really vital to get me going, to end the day, middle of the day, whatever it is? Is there anything that is kind of a staple for you?
Yes, and it's changing throughout the course of my life, especially I'm getting a little bit older now, and you realize in terms of the energy that it takes to get through the day, because you got to have a lot of energy to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Whether it's paperwork or dealing with people, whatever. It's not so much a physical job, but mentally you have to be sharp and on top of your game. So what I did in my late 20s and 30s is different than what I have to do today to get to
your
that
40s.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You're very good. But as in my 50s right now, stay in reasonably good shape, get a good night's sleep. I don't think about these things years ago.
Yeah.
But now I realize it's like garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And you can't have too many days where you're at the top of your game. I mean, sometimes you're not going to get the best night's sleep you can't afford. But anyway, I try to give myself a fighting chance for the day.
So you pay attention to your physical fitness.
Yes.
You pay attention to your sleep. Anything else?
Yeah, I think that it's a matter of mental organization.
Yes.
So I've read many self-help books over the years and time management, and I found that I distilled them down. There seemed to be certain fundamental truths for me. Certain things were
work for you.
Yeah, it's like, it's a lot of that stuff seems to me to be the same, but in different packages.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
So what I like to do is I realize that I have a full tank of gas in the morning, and this is going to go down from there. You do what you got to do, and it might work long days, but I try to tackle the most difficult tasks at the beginning of the day. And then towards the end of the day, I leave time for planning for the next day, or maybe more ministerial tasks that not as much brain power when we're, hey, it's been a rough one, we're tired, but we can still print out this stuff for tomorrow. But at the beginning of the day,
it's where the creative flow is. It's where the energy,
for me,
where thinking power. I think a lot of people are like that, but that's powerful that you are aware of that and kind of plan your day that way.
And it takes time to figure that out, but I think for sure I figured that out about me. I had a colleague I worked with for a long time, Doug was his name, and he was the opposite. His light came on, when the sun went down.
Yes, many people. That's a big of a yin and a yang. My wife and I are a lot like that.
Yeah. So, but in terms of what I need to do, obviously you have things that are like burning brush fires on your desk. Oh my God. So, so that we're going to have a list of things. We might not get through all of them, but we're going to have A, B, and C. We're going to get all the A's done. And out of the A's, what's 1, 2, 3, 4 the most important things. So once we can get the most important, and sometimes by level of importance, there's a deadline. It has to be done today. The letter has to go out. Or it might be, this matter, I need to get the client something today so that they are continuing comfortable. I need to make contact. Or sometimes it's just a big project that we can't wait till the last minute, so it has to be prioritized. But I'm a natural, I would say, obsessive list maker. And so I get some comfort as we go. The technology is wonderful, but I still make written lists as I go daily.
I like that.
To make sure we're tracking, because then you can see the results of the work. Again, what I do is a lot of it is paperwork, and not that I forget, but I need to see the real results. We're getting the job done on all these as we go. And if for some reason something didn't get done, well, that's going to the top of the list for the next day. So
That's great.
That's like my security blanket.
Yeah, that works for you.
So.
Well, it's interesting too that, procrastination in your world would probably be not doing that stuff in the morning, and then hoping you get it done in the afternoon. In the afternoon, you're like, screw it, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't have it. I don't have the energy. I don't want. But I'm sure you still get the job done. But the idea is, I'm going to front load my day, knock out the big stuff, and then I'm going to kind of coast to the end of the day to make sure I get everything done. And so it's just a matter of where am I going to slot the items that I need to get done.
That's exactly right. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect and I
of course
don't
not.
procrastinate. Matter of fact, let's face it, procrastination is human nature. There's certain unpleasant tasks that we have to tackle that you want to put off.
Yep.
So it's a constant battle. And you have to keep yourself honest.
For all of us.
Yeah. And so you just keep working on it and keep improving.
Yes.
And
be kind to yourself too, right? Because at the end of the day, if there's a couple of things on the list, it's like you can't tailspin into depression. It's like, okay, I'm going to put those in tomorrow. We're going to tackle it again tomorrow. You know what I mean? We're not delivering livers and kidneys here.
Right.
So anyway.
You just hit on something. You really need to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
One of my mentors, Tom, the attorney I work with, said something along those lines to me because, it's the same with what you do, what the agents do. It's high stress stuff.
Yes.
Even if we're on automatic pilot, this is no big deal. I just crank it.
Yes.
At the end of the day, I feel the stress. Because you're doing important stuff for people. They've entrusted it to you. It's not just paperwork.
Right.
So it can take its toll, and you need to take a deep breath, and you need to go walk the dog. You need to take a break, play the guitar, whatever you need to do.
Buddy, I like that.
And just say, it's all right. We didn't have a perfect day, but we basically
we showed up.
Yeah. We're trying and making progress, and then look back and you're getting the job. Then when there's a big problem. But you gotta just nobody's perfect.
Yep.
Nobody's expected to be perfect, but we try. Like Vince Lombardi said, we're gonna chase perfection and catch excellence, or something like that.
I like that.
Yeah, so I
like that.
Yeah,
that's great.
That was in one of those self-help books.
All right, that's good. I like that. I'm going to borrow that. So Harry, you have a podcast as well, which I found out just maybe a month ago. And tell us a little bit about that, because it's a fascinating thing. And you mentioned an old television show was kind of the inspiration for you to be a lawyer.
Right.
And so tell us about that.
So as I kind of hinted at, I spent a lot of my formative years watching TV on the couch, which was a lot of fun. And actually, I wouldn't change anything about my childhood. I'm not saying I was a terrible student, but let's just say I had my share of diversions. So a friend of mine, Jim Sion is his name. He's a jazz musician in New Orleans, but for many years was a weatherman in Fort Myers, Florida. He and I knew each other from high school around here. He contacted me during COVID, and he and I are kind of, I suppose you would say, television geeks, especially for shows anywhere from the 60s, which we were watching in reruns while we were going, anywhere from Lost in Space, the Rifleman, the Cisco Kid, all this stuff that just, there's only 3 or 4 channels. So you're watching anything that's on there into the 70s, The Love Boat, 8 is Enough, Fantasy Island, and then
Zipline.
Kind of our area of interest cuts off about the early 90s or so.
Okay.
It's like, we talk about it, but basically, Jim knows everything. He reads books upon books about celebrities. He reads a book at night, 2 or 3 nights a week, reading about Lucille Ball or about Frank Sinatra's parties, and just loves that kind of stuff.
That's great.
And that's what was ingrained to me growing up was pop culture and television, and I loved sports and all that.
Sure.
So anyway, we started during COVID a podcast where we called it Down the TV Rabbit Hole, where we just geek out basically with our remembrances, and we do research into the old TV shows that we watch. He'll pick one, I'll pick one. We won't know what show we're going to talk about. For example, one time I'll pick Green Acres and he picked The Honeymooners. And then we give a report on the show, how long it was on, what network it was on, but most of the fundamentals. And then
he might fill in some of the some of the nuances of the people and the things that the celebrities.
And then we'll go back and forth. And that's where I found out that he's always reading these books, because he's got all these gold nuggets. And I go a lot on my my recollection, and we would look at. But I think we've never made a dime, and that's not our intent. It's fun. It's one of these releases, so it's completely frivolous. A great way to waste an hour or two if you want to listen to it, and put a smile on your face if you like that kind of stuff. And we've had some great feedback, but like as I say, we're doing on the legal side, do all this important work, but you got to have your diversions where you take a deep breath and
let some of that creativity flow out, so you have room for more.
Exactly.
Right.
So what you'll hear on that podcast has nothing to do, except he makes jokes about how I should have consulted with Eddie Albert on Green Acres, so he didn't buy that farm. He didn't get
Zsa Zsa Gabor, right? Was it Zsa Zsa?
It was her fault. She forced the transaction. But anyway. Other than that,
and what's the name of the podcast?
Down the TV Rabbit Hole.
Down the TV Rabbit Hole, and it's on.
You can get it on Spotify or Odyssey.
And we'll put a link in the show notes. So, okay, Harry, if you're in the Final Four of the NCAA championship and the Hawkeyes are playing the Ramblers, who are you pulling for?
So that's an interesting question. I would say it's for sure going to be the Ramblers. But I'm going to be somewhat conflicted because my son goes to Iowa now.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So Grace's daughter goes to Iowa. Grace, who's our leader of our operation team.
Really?
So
but don't tell her I said that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would say I'm like.
And the Ramblers were most recently in the Final Four. Is that what's kind of tipping your scales that way?
Well, I think it's. I actually finished my undergrad there.
Okay.
Then I went to to law school there, and I just couldn't believe that they made the Final Four. I still can't. I think that might be some kind of a conspiracy theory. Yeah. So I just had a little bit more of a local connection living here my whole life. Having said that, it's super close.
Yes.
Iowa, great place, and love it. But there wouldn't be much conflict. I'd be basically just dancing in the streets no matter who won that one.
Okay.
What a cliche answer, but it pretty much would be true.
Okay.
Don't ask me about the Cubs and the Sox. I'll make half the people mad out there.
Okay. I do usually ask that question. Is it Cubs or Sox? I would guess you're a Cubs fan.
I'm a Cubs fan.
Yeah. Okay. Because you're kind of North Sider. All right. So you say you play guitar. So if we, every year Spotify does this thing, does kind of the recap of how you listened.
Really?
Yes. So so let's just do the recap. What is the number one band that you listen? If you think Spotify recorded how you listen to music, if you listen to music on Spotify.
Okay, so
what's your number one?
Asking me this question at my current age in 2003 is much different than most of my life.
Sure.
I was in a rock band for quite a while.
Wow.
Listened to all kinds of alternative music in the 80s, but now I have my own jazz group, or at least I'm a part of a jazz group where we play instrumentals. So I'm listening to Wes Montgomery and Kenny Burrell and George Benson and Horace Silver.
That's fantastic.
WDC, and so opening up a whole new world of music that years ago I thought, jazz? Are you kidding me? It was almost like you hear these people where they're walking down the street and get hit in the head with a brick and then they lose their memory or something. It's like that happened to me, and all of a sudden I like jazz music.
Yeah. But when you discover jazz like the way that you are, it's like it doesn't matter when it came out because it's brand new for you. Right. And so you're tapping into a whole new.
It's level upon level of realizing it's not just random notes. Not at all. There is something like that, but that's a different sort of jazz. But so I'm having the time of my life, actively listening, figuring as I'm a player too. There's a different kind of listening that goes on, and I'm one of those people that's why I play guitar, because when I listen to music, I want to play it. I don't want to do it myself.
Yes. And so can people see you play?
Not yet, but coming soon.
Okay.
You can't. We wanted to make sure we're ready for prime time. And I think we are. So the name of the group is Green Olives. Okay. And we should be playing around the city or northwest suburbs sometime in 2023, and I'll have a watch for social media or bartosiaklaw.com. I'll put something on there.
Okay, fantastic, Harry. I'm glad we learned that about you. Well, okay, so we're going to wrap up with Harry Bartosiak from Bartosiak Law. It's our pleasure, Harry. Thanks for being a part of the podcast, and we just appreciate your partnership as well.
And thank you for all you've done for my practice. I'm a big fan of land trust title, and you've been a great help to me, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk today.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.